The Viva Real podcast, Real Estate for the Americas, where we interview local market experts in Latin America. This is Brian Reckworth, and today I'm with Egbert Bloemsma. He's a Dutch expat living in the beautiful country of Brazil. He's an expert in real estate development in Brazil, focused on the tourism industry. Egbert, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Doing great. It's great to have you. So if you could first start off telling our listeners a little bit more about your background and how you ended up in Brazil.
Well, I've been living in various countries in Europe, first of all, always working in the real estate industry. Whereas in the last 12 years in Europe, I worked only in the tourism-related real estate industry. About 2 years ago, I moved to Brazil to focus entirely on project development of tourism-related projects.
Could you tell us why Brazil is an attractive place for foreign investment in real estate?
There's a number of reasons. You could mention the gorgeous nature here. Nature you will not find in many other parts of the world. It's a very large country with very large unspoiled areas of coastline. There is a good infrastructure for international airports. Foreign visitors can move around quite easily. And probably one of the very good reasons why there's currently a very strong interest from foreign buyers is that compared to other locations in the world, real estate is still considered to be cheap. Local labor is cheap, and therefore the end product becomes a lot cheaper than it is in other parts of the world. Also, due to the large amounts of areas still available, land is relatively cheap. Larger areas here can be bought for $2 a square meter. And smaller plots are still available for a lot low amounts of money as well.
And how do people handle financing real estate? Is there financing for foreigners, or do people usually pay in cash? How does that work?
It is relatively easy for foreigners to move their money in and out of the country. There is no restrictions anymore as there used to be in the old days. When it comes to financing the purchase, most people arrange the financing back home. Just turns out to be cheaper than financing at the rates available in Brazil.
And do real estate agents operate with a license in Brazil? Is there a certification process like in the United States, or how does that work?
There is a complete certification process here. It's called CRECI, C-R-E-C-I. It's the Brazilian equivalent of a real estate license. In order to buy or to sell property as a company, you need such a license. Although Latin America has a reputation for a market that is not as transparent as it is in Northern America or in Europe, the professional services, once one is looking for the right companies, is widely available throughout Brazil. There's very good lawyers' offices. There are very good estate agents. As long as you make sure you're dealing with certified and qualified people, there shouldn't be any problem.
And where are most foreign buyers, where are they buying? What part of Brazil?
Well, Brazil is such an incredibly large country. To give you an idea, it's larger than the entire Europe. It's larger. If I'm not incorrect, it is larger than the United States of America. It is just a huge country, so it's hard to say there's just one or two areas where foreigners are buying. But there's a large concentration of foreigners in the main cities, Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. And when it comes to holiday homes, you will find that the majority of foreigners is buying in the northeastern part of Brazil. The main areas in the northeastern part of Brazil where foreigners are buying are Salvador and Bahia, Recife, Natal, and Fortaleza, whereby Fortaleza and Natal are probably the slightly cheaper areas where tourism is entirely focused on beach and water sports. There's a lot of kite surfing, there's a lot of wind surfing over there. Whereas when you come to Bahia, a little bit further south, you get into a slightly more upmarket tourism, whereby the ecological aspect of the holiday is very important.
Now, obviously, price depends on location, but can you give us an idea of a single-family home in a nice neighborhood, let's say in Salvador or Fortaleza?
Let's focus on beachfront properties, although they're always more expensive anywhere in the world. It's probably the easiest to compare. If you would buy like in square feet, that would be like a 3,000 square feet home on the beach. You would pay in US dollars, you would pay the equivalent of 400 to 600,000 dollars for a brand new family home. And when you go further north, you will probably pay a little bit less. You will pay somewhere in the region of 300 to 500,000 US. And that would be for a 3,000 square feet home on a 10,000, 15,000 square feet plot.
What would you say are the best economic indicators that Brazil is a good investment in the long term?
There's a couple of recent changes, well, some recent and some not so recent changes in the economy of Brazil. Brazil has seen a very steady and very continuous growth in their economy. In the past, Brazil has suffered from some very high inflation rates. Over the last 20 years, that has slowly but very surely come down now to 6.5% on an annual basis and remains very stable at that level. Even during this crisis period, Brazil remains a growing economy and inflation rate remains stable at 6.5%, which has been a very good indicator. In the past, Brazil has always suffered tremendously. When the whole world was having a cold, Brazil was just dying. That has changed considerably. Another very good indicator is that two of the main American offices, Standard & Poor's and Fitch, have both rated Brazil as a country to be a BBB minus investment grade country, which puts it at the level whereby any American investment fund can freely invest in Brazil without any limitations. Some very good indicators for the Brazilian economy.
Well, thanks a lot for giving us some insight on the local market there. This has been Viva Real Podcast, Real Estate for the Americas, where we interview local market experts in Latin America. Thanks for being on the show, and to our listeners, thanks for tuning in.